Hi, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Carpets and Tea with me. I wanted to talk about therapy, and I want to talk about therapy in the sense that there are still a lot of people who may not think that therapy is for everyone or may not think that therapy is for them. And there may be the questions of, oh, you go to therapy, or oh, you go to therapy. Why do you go to therapy, right? A lot of that. And I want to talk about it because I think it's so important to understand that therapy is a place where you may talk about things that you may not feel comfortable talking about with other people, or you may talk about with other people, but you're noticing or you may find that you're getting a lot of unsolicited advice or solicited advice, opinions, but they may not line up with your heart, with your soul. And you may be open to seeking therapy because you may be finding that a lot of wounds or traumas or heartbreaks or heartaches in any type of form are coming up. And I think it's so wonderful to take that opportunity and say, hey, maybe I'll try this thing that's therapy. Or maybe you've been seeing a lot of the ads or the videos that are advertising BetterHelp. That's the main one that I see everywhere, is the ads and the commercials for BetterHelp. And I think it's so important to know, okay, I may be open to therapy. What do I search for? What do I look for in a therapist? Or how do I know what kind of therapist I need? And these are questions that I had. I didn't know. Well, first of all, I never really asked myself what kind of therapist I need or what kind of therapist I'm looking for. I was walked to the therapist's office and I was guided and I was told, maybe you should see a therapist. And I said, okay, I'm open to it, right? Like there was a little hesitance. I was a little hesitant, like, oh, what is that? What do I do? And I've heard about it, but I don't know. And so going to a therapist, my first time ever, I didn't know what to look for. I didn't even know there was something to look for. And that's what I want to talk about. That I didn't know that I had to look for stuff, or I didn't know that there would be. Okay, so let's talk about when I went to therapy the first time ever. It was a Caucasian male. And I I was telling him, I was initially crying a lot and I didn't know why I was crying, but as soon as he would ask me questions, I would start to cry. I would start to feel all of these emotions that were pent up, right? Like a mason jar, you keep it locked up and sealed and they never come out and they're just there hidden away. Well, that mason jar was starting to barely unseal. It's like taking off the wrapping around it. And I started saying some things and he started giving me advice. He started giving me advice and he started giving me help. I say help because it's help. And so I took his advice and I did what he told me. And if he told me to do something, I would do it. And guess what? It didn't help because it wasn't what I needed in that moment. Also, he was a Caucasian male, so he did not understand me, a woman of color, coming from a Latinx community, Latinx family, extremely hardcore, Catholic, traditional, right? And so all of that plays a part, it plays a role in our experiences. My next therapist, because he was an intern, so my next therapist was licensed and she was a Caucasian female. She was older and I started realizing that when I would walk in there, I was like, wait a minute, I can't do that though. You don't understand my family. And I would say that you don't understand that that's not the way it works. And she didn't understand the way it worked. And so she would say, no, you can do that. Just do that. Like it was just a blunt, just do it. It was almost like if I was stopping myself or if it was a very this is how it works for every single person. So then I stopped talking because it felt very dismissive and I didn't know that yet. I was just like, this feels very uncomfortable and I don't feel like we're a match. I just didn't understand yet. And so then she had me coloring and drawing. So then there I was spending an hour coloring and drawing because she thought that I was just, I don't know what she thought honestly, but according to her, maybe I just needed to color and draw. And so because I didn't have a voice yet. And so I started to color and draw. And then I took some time off from therapy because it just felt like, man, those have been my experiences. If this is what therapy's like, then maybe it's not for me. Like, it's not actually helping. If anything, it's bringing up all these emotions and feelings. And so I stopped going to therapy for some time. Well, then I had a Latinx mentor, and she told me, "You are gonna love this Latinx therapist." And I said, "Okay, I'm open." And so I met a Latinx therapist, and she was great. She was just focused on different issues, and so I was like, maybe that's not the right fit. But I was able to tell my Latinx mentor, I was able to tell her, "Hey, is there someone else that I can see, because I like her. It's just not, there's something not right." And she said, "Yes, maybe I have the right person. Maybe I'll have the next right person for you." And then she's the one that told me, finding a right therapist is like dating or meeting new friends. It takes, you're going to have all these friends, you're going to meet different people, and sometimes it's not going to be the exact right fit. Or maybe you'll have things to talk about, but maybe not other things. And so she made it seem very like, oh, okay, there's nothing wrong with with going through different people, I guess you could say, or going through different therapists. It didn't. She made it feel more natural and more, and she made me feel like I have a voice. And maybe my first two experiences were not the most helpful, but she made me realize, like, there are therapists who are going to understand my culture. And so that therapist was great, and I did a lot of work with her, and she's the first one that actually helped me realize, like, hey, why are you glossing over these things? Like, this is a big deal. And it's like, oh, well, I talked about it before, but it wasn't, I guess, a big deal, or it was just very brushed off, or that's just the way it's been, I guess, right? Like, it's not, I guess, seen as a big deal, or I've been told to, like, push it down and repress it, I guess, kind of thing. So I'm really grateful with that therapist. And then she was able to refer me to an EMDR therapist. And what EMDR is they do a lot of, so this is an example of like tapping, and I don't know how else to explain it, but like the flashing technique, if any of you have heard of that. But I can go in more into detail about that. But I want to just focus on what to search for. So she helped me a lot because she had a similar background, and she grew up in a similar style. It's a familial relationship, and it just felt really wonderful, and I was so grateful. And I was like, oh, no wonder. Okay, so this is what I needed. And so now I've been able to do a lot of, because I don't have that same insurance, I have to actually look for my own therapist, and I have to be my own advocate. And I am so glad that I had those experiences in the beginning, because I know now what I need and what I'm looking for. And so now when I'm looking for a therapist, I specifically ask for someone with my ethnic background. I specifically ask for a woman, and a woman of color, because I need someone who's going to understand what it's like to grow up as a woman, and not just, and I think this is where there are many layers. There's a layer of being a woman, and there's the layer of being a woman of color, and then there's all these other layers that go along with it. And so I think that would be one of the greatest things that I have found is to know, I think if you've been in therapy and you've been discouraged by a therapist because of the way they didn't understand you, I think that's the biggest thing, is to advocate or to understand in your heart that was probably not the best experience. It was probably not a positive experience, and it was probably not helpful. However, there is going to be a therapist out there for you. And this has been my journey. Finding a great therapist now has taken me years. It has taken me years, and it has taken me calling the state, the Department of Healthcare, the state, and advocating for myself and saying, hey, I have this insurance, but they are not giving me what I need. I've literally had to call the state and spent hours talking to them and advocating for myself because I know that the insurance I have and the building where you go and you visit a therapist, that they're not giving me, they don't have a therapist that can speak to me and to the person that I am. And I think reducing that shame and leaving that shame and saying, you know what, the therapist was not helpful and they did say some hurtful things. It's like, whoa. Or I did take their advice and it turned out a little worse because then that's another story. But the point is that I was able to advocate for myself and I was able to get referred through a different provider and my insurance is paying for it. And so what I've been able to do is I've been able to go on dates. I call these dates because you're setting up these initial consultations or these appointments with a therapist. You're meeting them, whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, you're meeting with them. And all of the majority of this, 98% of them have been virtual because after the pandemic, right, everyone has been able to do virtual. And that's another topic is that I'm not a big fan of virtual because I like to see the person one-on-one because I've had that experience and I prefer that experience. However, I also think that having a virtual therapist or having these sessions virtually is so helpful because they are so flexible because you can meet up with them and you can do it right on your phone. And so it is very helpful. It has its pros for me and it has its cons for me as well. And I've been able to schedule consultations. Literally, I can schedule 2 per day. I can schedule one every single day. I had some for 2 weeks straight where it was every day or every other day. And I would, at any time that they have availability, I would call or we would meet online and we would be able to talk. And I can literally tell you that now, within 15, 30 minutes, or after 1 hour session, I can know, oh, that didn't feel right. It didn't feel right, this. Or I am so brave because now and I am so courageous and I am so strong and so knowledgeable and well informed that now I can actually ask them questions. And I wasn't there yet. A couple years ago, I didn't know what to ask. And now I can ask them. I asked the therapist the other day, hey, are you trauma informed? And they were like, oh, well, and then they gave me some of their background. Or I can ask, hey, do you have experience with sexual assault? And they can tell me, hey, do you have experience with familial bonds? And they can give me their explanation. Hey, do you have experience with motherhood? Even that the other day I asked someone, do you have experience with postpartum? Do you know what that means? And she was honest. She said, well, actually, I don't have any experience in postpartum. And I said, oh, okay. And thank you for being honest, right? And she said, that's not my expertise. I work with mothers, but we work like in this other field, right? And I said, okay. And it was helpful for me to ask those questions right away because I'm no longer gonna waste my time. And also we're paying for them. We're paying for them. I get the bills. I know they're getting paid $200 an hour. And I know, wait a minute, was that even helpful? Or I know if it was a waste of my time. Because I know a lot of people are not gonna say that about therapy, but if I'm just sitting here and you're talking to me a whole hour, is that helpful for me? Because thank you for talking, but also how much of the talking are you doing? Because this is supposed to be my safe space to talk. And of course, when I'm done talking, you can talk. But if they're spending the majority of time giving you their advice, I mean, one, I'm like, did I ask for your advice? Two, that's not helpful for me because I don't really need advice or want advice unless I ask you for it. And I know that now. So another example is that I asked the therapist, what do you think about this? And she started saying, and I said, oh wait, I misworded that. I'm not asking you what you think I should do. I'm asking you what you think about the situation, the way people are reacting, and the way we're all, right? And so I think wording it correctly so that there's no miscommunication. Also, I met with another therapist and she right away, she said, we only have 15 minutes. And right away she said, oh, you have this. She literally diagnosed me within 5 seconds. And she said, you have this, you have this, you have that. You need to see me once per week and I will take care of you. And after 8 weeks, you're going to be well and gone. I was like, oh, okay. I definitely know that you are not the right fit for me. Another therapist. Okay, see, this is one of the warnings, one of the red flags I like to look out for is when their profile says, "This is my one and tried true method to get everyone to heal." That's a red flag because there is no one and tried true method for everyone. We all come from different backgrounds. We all come from social, economic differences. All of these differences, all of these layers, they make us different. They make us unique. And that's even a barrier to have someone who doesn't understand your background. That's a barrier right there because it's like you don't understand my background. You can't, and so I think that's a really big red flag for me personally. And I've talked to another therapist where I told her, oh, there was this one therapist and I saw, and I right away I should have known when I saw the one and try true method. And she said, oh, yeah, that's a red flag for me too. When any therapist thinks that they can just diagnose every single person or treat every single person the same, you can't. And I think that for me also, so there's also something called decolonization therapy. And decolonization therapy is they realize that therapy is very much Eurocentric. And so now decolonize therapy is very much let's eliminate, or not let's eliminate, but let's treat the people. I don't know how to explain it that well, but it's very much this is what a marginalized person looks like at rest, right? And have you ever seen one of your family members, if you come from, um, I don't want to say marginalized, but that's what a lot of therapists, that's the word they use. But have you seen a person of color rest? Do you know what that looks like, right? And so I think that all of this is so informative to learn and understand what we need, right? And so when looking for therapists, or if you've seen a therapist and it was not a great experience, I hope that does not discourage you from seeking therapy, because therapy is like dating. You have to date and you have to get to know them. And if it doesn't feel right, follow your instincts. Follow your instincts. Follow your heart. If it's telling you, oh, this feels uncomfortable, follow that. Because there are millions of therapists. And what I've done is when I feel like a therapist is like, why are you saying that? That doesn't feel right with me. Then you know what? I follow that. And I'm like, I'm paying her $200. Why would I continue to see her and to pay her to tell me all of these things that are making me so uncomfortable when I could just not? And so I think that the one thing is be comfortable with, like, no, I don't think we're a good fit. And I've had a lot of those, all of those consultations that I had, whether they were 1 hour or 30 minutes. After one time, I was just like, oh, and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna keep looking. Thank you so much. And one of them, after our first consultation, she scheduled me for every week, weekly. And I sent her an email and I said, hi, I know you scheduled us, but I didn't accept that. I'm still looking for a therapist that I can find that understands what I've gone through, right? And that has that experience or that expertise. And then she apologized and she said, oh, yeah, thank you for letting me know. I just thought we were on the same page. So some of them are going to assume you're on the same page, or some of them think that you had a great first consult. Maybe I didn't speak up enough. Maybe I didn't say anything. Who knows? But I think that just being able to say, hey, this didn't feel right, or that therapist was really like just in a hurry. And some of the things, yeah. So I think just, and then some of them really, one of them wanted to get to the bottom of it the first session ever, our consult. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable talking about this. I don't know you. And even that, like, they could be a therapist, but even that, if it doesn't feel comfortable, you will know when it feels comfortable. And I hope that no one gets discouraged. And if you have, give it another try. There are so many therapists out there. Literally, there are so many. And they all need us because we're the client, we're the patient. And if they're not helping us in the way we need, it's okay to say, this is not a good fit, this is not a good match, the same. And I think that so many times, for me at least, I would be like, okay, maybe they were having a bad day, but after a bit it's like, okay, I think I'm putting up too many excuses, and maybe we just really are not a good match. Because I shouldn't, one, a person should never leave therapy feeling bad, and a person should not be leaving feeling dismissed or belittled, or like they didn't get an opportunity to express their valuable voice, for sure. And I think it's so interesting because a lot of times people, I had a therapist who would end the session right at the time, or she would say, I have another client coming in, I have to cut it. And it's like, this is something so important that I think decolonized therapy does, where you give like a warning, like a timer of, hey, our therapy is about to end in 15 minutes. Would you like to debrief? Would you like to do some calming exercises? Would you like to just take the time to relax a little bit after you go out into the real world, right? And that is so helpful, because you're in this space where you're talking and you're sharing and you're being vulnerable, and they're witnessing your vulnerability, and you're both exchanging energies. That's one big thing, is exchanging energies. If you feel so drained after your therapy session, that's also a sign, because you want to, at least for me personally, I like to leave like feeling like I can fly, feeling so light and feeling so content. And yes, some things may be uncomfortable to talk about, but I know for me that if I feel comfortable sharing, and I feel grateful that I was able to share that, or if I see like, wow, I haven't been able to share that before and I was able to share that with you, they're making that space safe. And so I think that that's one big thing. And decolonized therapy, I have found for me personally, they really make it less about, here are some handouts, here are some papers, here are some tools I'm going to give you, but more about, what do you need? How can I support you? And the way that the language is different, in a sense of more caring about the soul. And also, I have found that it's helped me get in tune with my ancestors, and with, yeah, with my ancestors and the soul, like our souls. And I have found decolonized therapy to be so helpful, and other forms of therapy, but for sure I didn't know that that existed, and it's helped me get in tune with my ancestors and with our inherited wounds and everything that's been passed down from generation to generation. So I hope that this video helped anyone who's thinking about therapy, or who has heard about therapy, or who has seen all those ads about therapy and, finding someone to talk to. I want to let you know that it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna go, or I don't want to say that it's not just I'm gonna go and talk to someone, but I want it to be, and I hope that it's a space where you can actually go and be your authentic self and express yourself and express anything that you're feeling and anything that you feel is coming up. And if it's giving you this energy where you just want to spill everything and release everything, I think that that's the space. But if it's the space where, I know I've had friends who tell me that their therapists were yawning and super just like dozing off. I mean, you can be tired, but dozing off and yawning and falling asleep during a therapy session, that's not helpful. I would not recommend a therapist like that. And I had a therapist who would actually go and eat breakfast. Like, she would leave our session while we were talking, or when I was talking, and she would go and leave and eat breakfast because it was in the morning, and then she would come back and she would still be eating her breakfast, and I'm like, I'm paying you. Then I had a different therapist who, it just really, some of the advice that I've gotten, I laugh sometimes. I can't believe it. And then I'm like, I am so glad I'm at this point where I can know the difference and not feel bad about myself and feel some guilt and some shame, that I'm like, okay, that was not okay, and I know that was not okay. And so she would have her kids. I had a therapist who would have her kids coming in and out of our therapy session. She would have her husband coming in and out of her therapy session. So I've had a lot of experiences, And if anyone wants to message me and talk about this further, or if anyone, I've been interested in making a video in Spanish because I think that a lot of my Latinx community could could use a video in Spanish in regards to therapy, and I want to destigmatize therapy because therapy has been so beneficial now that I'm able to advocate and ask for what I need, and just even asking that, hey, do you have an experience working with mothers with postpartum depression? Do you have an experience working with mothers with postpartum anxiety? Do you have any knowledge in that area? And I think having that honest answer of no, I don't, I can't help you with that, that's so helpful because then that lets me know, okay, then you know what, I need someone in that area. And I have had therapists who were so helpful, and they didn't take my insurance, and they would say, I will email you, or I will go ask on my Facebook group if there are any mothers who, any therapists who are accepting your insurance that focus just on that. And I'm like, thank you so much. And then there are others, like the one I had, and she was just like, I can't help you with that, but we can talk about something else. And it's like, okay, well, you know, I think that that's an area that I would like. Or just even asking, hey, do you know what decolonized therapy is? And they're like, no, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that's already letting me know, okay, then maybe I need to find someone that knows what that is and how to do that. And they study that. And I have found someone, and it's amazing because I can talk about my ancestors and I can talk about the spirits and the souls, and she understands that. And she even said, this is going to sound super colonized, but I have to give you this worksheet to fill out. And I'm like, thank you. Just even acknowledging that, I feel like I've come so far. I know I have. And so there was this therapist that told me literally, don't hug your baby every day. And I was like, this is like the worst advice ever. And I was able to talk to her manager. And she said, oh yeah, she, something, she was going through something. And I was like, thank you for letting me know, because I did think that, I thought something must be going on with her because she's not paying attention in our session. She's very, she's present. No, her body is there, but she's not present. And right away you can see all of this. And I think that that's where, if that were to be someone's first session, they would be completely discouraged and not want to go to therapy because they're like, my therapist is not even paying attention to me. And I was like, this is not what I want for people, to find her and stay there thinking that's what therapy is, because that's not what therapy is. And so I hope that this video encourages you to, one, if you have anything coming up, and even if you don't, just seeking therapy, I think it's so helpful to go to therapy and just talk about anything. Just talk about your childhood, your inner child. And if you want more information, I am here. I can make more videos about that as well. But I think it's so important. I think every single person should go to therapy because it's so helpful to understand ourselves, our inner child, 7-year-old me, 8-year-old me, 10-year-old me, 11-year-old me, 15-year-old me, 20-year-old me. Like, it's so helpful to understand the way we thought, the way we think, why we do the things we do. And yeah, I hope that everyone is encouraged. And if you'd like a video in Spanish about this, so we can send it to your moms, your tias, your abuelas, your primos, every single person, I would love to do that too. Let me know and message me and comment me. And thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and for sharing this space with me. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful, amazing day.